Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Welcome to the 2026 International Symposium on Cooperative Identity and Energizing the Cooperative Brand. I'm Erin Hancock. I'm the Education Manager with the International Center for Cooperative Management out of St. Mary's University's Sobey School of Business. We're on the East Coast of Canada. So I'll ask folks to look at the chat if you are looking for translation. And I'll chat. There's information for Portuguese, Spanish, French, and English as well. So I welcome everyone. To get that sorted, we'll pause for one moment so we bring everyone along with us. Okay, so we are using Zoom meeting, not Zoom webinar. That means that this is an opportunity for you to see everyone else who is here. Even if I select to spotlight the speakers, you can still go to your settings and look at gallery view, which allows you to see anyone who's sharing a video. And if you want to make any direct connections, you can go ahead and click the up caret in the chat to be able to see everyone who's here and send direct messages. Or feel free to add things to the chat that everyone can see. If you have a comment, response, example, please do add that. If you want to link to something that you're doing or a report or research, we appreciate that as well. This is a shared space for all of us to contribute to everyone's learning. Also, if you have questions along the way, please do add that to the chat so that we're able to capture those. And at the end of the question period at each of the segments, we'll make sure to get to as many as possible. If you want people to know who you are and where you are from, please go to if you hover over your own video box and see the three dots, you can select to rename yourself. And within that, you can say where you're from, your area or your organization, so that people can know a little bit more about you if they want to send a direct message and see who's here. The program flow is on the website. I apologize to anyone who was here early this morning. We have set a 3-day event within Zoom. The sessions do start earlier tomorrow and the next day. So I apologize for people who were here earlier today because of that Zoom reminder. It's helpful to go ahead and look directly at the schedule, and you'll use the same link to come and go in any of the sessions that you want to be part of throughout the week. We will be recording everything and putting these as segments that go up onto our YouTube channel. We'll let everyone know about that after, and we'll be sharing the slides as well. However, we know as adult learners, when we can pay attention, while things are live and have some energy, it helps that much more with our retention. So I invite you to stay present and to stay engaged in the chat as well to keep things interesting for everyone along the way. So myself and Tammy Mercier are here today from our center. And if you need any help along the way with anything, you can connect with us directly. And Jenny from Co-ops and Mutuals Canada will be here as the support with the translation. Okay, great. So I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, .coop, as well as the Northwest Cooperative Development Center, who have been co-organizers, seeding this idea and growing it, and also have financially supported the event to make it possible for all of you to attend at no cost. I also want to thank Co-ops and Mutuals Canada, our national apex organization for all co-ops here in Canada, who are supporting the event and also providing the technology that allows us to have translation into 4 languages. So thank you to everyone there. Also, thank you to all the moderators and the speakers for bringing your wisdom and giving of your time to elevate all of us and to help us do better in our work. So thank you very much. And lastly, I wanted to share my gratitude for having our center located on Mi'kmaq territory here on the east coast of Canada. Our center is located in Chibuktuk, which is the Great Harbor in the Mi'kmaq language. And we're very lucky to live here. We honor and uphold the trees of peace and friendship and are thankful, of course, cooperatives as place-based organizations that matters. So we're grateful to the elders, past and present, for their stewardship of these lands. For those of you who are brand new to our center or want a little recap, as the hosts of this event, we just wanted to share a little bit in saying that our center has been proud to be a true Principle 6 cooperation among cooperatives success story from the outset back in 2002, when a cooperative of organizations and cooperative leaders from around the world came together to support getting this center off the ground to serve all of us. And so we're happy to be the stewards at this moment in time. We've been known since 2003 as the folks that have the cooperative alternative to an MBA, if you will, the Master of Management Co-ops and Credit Unions online and part-time. I know there are some graduates here joining us today. And since then, the center has expanded to offer a lot more education and research and convening of people like what we're doing here today. So we have a week-long intensive leadership program, the Canada DE program, short courses, and normally each year ahead of the National Co-op Business Association conference in the US, we will do a one-day course, a different topic each year. We're doing a cooperative law summer school masterclass in Croatia in August. Still seats available there. Every year we do an international study tour to visit cooperatives and cooperative thought leaders and researchers, typically in Italy and Spain. And we also have done Costa Rica, Cuba, Croatia as well. And so we invite folks to check some of these things out. We have a lot of online free publications, webinar recordings, and these symposia we do every few years to try to dig into a different topic that is critical within the cooperative sector to build a stronger knowledge base. So if you're interested in anything that we do, we invite you to check it out. There's lots, again, free and open on our website, and lots coming up, including our master's program, graduate diploma, and certificate online part-time are still accepting applications for the next few weeks for this year's cohort. So if that interests you, you've all received emails from me, go ahead and reply to them and we can connect. So I wanted to just share that we have over 40 speakers from 11 countries. We have 25 presentations over the 4 days of the event. Because we did kick off last Thursday, and thanks for those of you who were there for that, for our pre-symposium workshop. And we have around 400 people registered for this event from all around the world. I should count up the countries because it's quite an impressive spread. So thank you all for being part of this. Just to highlight the themes. So these are the key themes of our event. You have noticed maybe when reviewing the program that we have opted to sort of segment the program more niche and specific based on the topics that have come in. So we haven't titled the different sessions or days under these topics, but rather these are threaded throughout, and many of them are covered within each of the presentations and panels. So assessing authenticity, so labels and certifications, effective branding, cooperative identity, positioning, and messaging, marketing the cooperative advantage, communicating cooperative identity, and building cooperative culture. So this is a segment that looks both internally and externally, and then also resonating in the contemporary digital landscape. So if you want to get more details on each of those, they are in your program, and we'll drop that. I see there's a lot happening in the chat already, which is great. Feel free to say hello to folks, but we will drop the program into the chat as well so that you can get more details on those themes as well as everything that's happening. And also, in particular, to be able to click those little links under each of the segments that says, find your time zone here, because of course we're spread across many time zones and we want you to be able to arrive at the time for the session that you're wanting. So I did want to highlight what we have coming up here today. So we're launching with a panel on advancing the cooperative message in today's economic climate. And then we're going to move into 4 other segments that focus on public policy and public awareness and law, including a national identity system. This is through the Canadian Co-ops and Mutuals Canada, through the Canadian Apex, spreading the word, so media and public awareness through Colorado's co-op networks, Somos Co-op, so promoting co-op identity through shared branding, Argentina, ownership structures, our identity structures. So this is a speaker from the US, looking forward to that. And then this afternoon, we'll have another segment, Beyond Branding, Living Cooperative Identity Through Practice, Old Medicine, New Structure. Let that one be a teaser on its own. Embedding cooperative identity and management practice. And Oh, I apologize with the Somos Co-op. I said in Argentina. The Nodos model is from Argentina, and then an interview panel under the hood of cooperative culture. So quite a bit coming up there today. And so we just wanted to say that the day is full. And so we hope that you can come for as much as you can, but otherwise we will be recording this and making sure that you can see it later today. The whole idea of this event and the reason why we do this every few years is to bring cooperators together. So to invite dialogue wherever we can. This is why we invite you to use the chat and connect with each other, share your ideas, links, and so forth, to advance our own thinking and action around branding, messaging, and marketing. To elevate the way that we show up in the economy and society and how we can reach current members as well as new audiences. We did say, you know, cooperatives are the best kept secret no more. And this is something that is a refrain that we struggle with, I know, in the cooperative sector. But it feels like a particularly opportune moment for people to be turning to cooperatives and community-owned organizations to be serving their needs and providing shared ownership and shared say. We want to expand our resources, tools, and pathways for cooperatives to grow awareness and impact. And in past symposiums, so our last one was actually in 2021, we did the Cooperative Governance Symposium. That produced a book with researchers and case studies and publications from around the world that is free and open on our website. We'll drop that into the chat here in a minute as well. And so we've covered topics from labor to policy to governance, all within the cooperative world. And so we're focusing in on marketing, branding, and identity with this topic here this week. And we also have an invitation from the International Journal of Cooperative Accounting and Management to do a special edition. So depending on how the next few days goes, and if that feels like it could get some grit behind it in terms of the kinds of things that could come out of this as a written piece, we'll make sure that you're informed about that as well, so you can refer to that later. So I wanted to highlight what's coming up the next couple of days as well. And again, we'll link you to the program again so that you can take a look for yourself. But please know that there's a lot of skill building as well as case study sharing and perspectives on strategy that a lot of folks are sharing from many different backgrounds. And I did want to highlight as well that we have Jeroen from the Director General of the International Co-op Alliance, our international apex, who will be doing a keynote speech tomorrow, as well as a panel to follow. And following that, focusing on sustainability reporting as part of communicating the cooperative story. On Thursday, we'll have a segment on credit unions and marketing specifically and engaging new audiences. We'll do a showcase of the worldmap.coop site, which I hope everyone knows about. And if not, that's a great session to be at and see how it works and how you can leverage it for your own work. And then we'll be wrapping up the session with 2 cases about how we can market for member loyalty and engagement. And then we'll be doing a short closing as well. So that's what we have coming up this week for you. Please attend any and all that you can. I know time zones are fun, and so please do what you can when you can. So we will send a follow-up from the event to everyone after, and you'll have an invitation to be able to complete a quick survey that helps us know what you might want to see in the future, what was valuable to you. And in fact, if we do have a publication or something coming out of things, it lets us know what's most critical for you in your work. So please take a moment to complete that. You'll also see that there will be an invitation to contribute to the bursary fund of our center to help low resource cooperators be able to access education. So if you get value of what is happening this week and you want to be able to contribute and your means allow, you want to pass on that goodwill, I invite you to contribute to that bursary fund. For any others, you are welcome here. No payment is necessary, just enjoy, and we invite you to implement and share whatever you want that comes out of this that lights you up. So there we are. Now we're all on the same page. Again, I wanted to just highlight if anyone has issues with translation, Jenny, who's in the chat, will maybe Jenny, you can rename yourself with Wordly at the front. That's the name of the tech program that we're using for translation. Please make a direct message to her. And if anybody has any tech issues or anything, Tammy and myself, Erin. Our names, actually, Tammy, our names will begin with ICCM, International Center for Co-op Management. So if you need to contact us directly, you can do that as well. Otherwise, we invite you to come and go as you want. And I'd like to hand things over today. So we have Aaliyah Ned, who is the Director of Government Relations with NCBA CLUSA, the National Apex Organization for Cooperatives out of the US. And I'll invite you, Aaliyah, to introduce your panel. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Erin, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see so many names, perspectives, places online in the chat, and it's great to be with everyone virtually. Just a huge thank you to St. Mary's, as well as Co-op and the Northwest Co-op Development Center for organizing what will be such a fantastic 3 days, and to Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada for supporting this event. As Erin said, my name is Aaliyah Ned, and I'm Director of Government Relations at the National Cooperative Business Association. Very, very excited that this timely topic on advancing the cooperative message in today's economic climate is opening up the symposium, and with such fantastic leaders who bring different perspectives from across the cooperative ecosystem, not just in their sectors, but also reflective of NCBA's membership with work spanning local, regional, and statewide associations. So to dive in, I'll be joined today by some fantastic panelists, Chelsea Bacon, and Chelsea can correct me when we're doing introductions if I butchered your last name there, Communications and Marketing Manager at East River Electric Power Cooperative, Jamie Miller, who's on screen with me here, Vice President at the Iowa Credit Union League, and Amy Abbott, Co-Executive Director of Community Purchasing Alliance. And before we jump into our conversation here, I just want to set some framing and the stage in terms of our conversation today, and diving into how do cooperatives explain our value clearly, credibly, and persuasively, especially at a time when families, businesses, communities are facing ongoing pressure economically. And policymakers in the US at federal, state, and local levels are looking to address these challenges. Across the country, we see people navigating rising costs around groceries, utilities, housing, credit, and just basic everyday services. And we know that people are desperately looking for a way to have a sense of control. And cooperatives are here, but as Erin said, and the purpose of this symposium, we have an educational gap to bridge and an opportune moment to do so. I heard someone put it in a conversation with co-op executive leaders that everyone is yelling fire, but no one is saying firefighter. And that's really analogous to where we find ourselves as co-ops who are positioned to solve these challenges and the communication challenges. But there is an opportunity here because we do have a really strong story to tell, built around our ownership, our accountability, and meeting shared needs. So without further ado, I want to hear from our panelists who work in all of these different contexts. We want to give some examples and highlight how we can tell clear stories about the value we create and how these stories strengthen advocacy, member engagement, public understanding, and trust. And to start, can each of you introduce to where your organization is situated within the co-op ecosystem, your sector, whether you're working locally at the state level, regionally, or nationally? And when you talk with folks in your communities in the context of where we find ourselves, whether that's lawmakers, members, or partners and the broader public, how do you explain what makes cooperatives different in your cooperative, and what part of that message really tends to land with those audiences first? And Chelsea, I see you're unmuted, so maybe I'll start with you and then folks feel free to jump in.
Chelsea Bakken. I'm with East River Electric, which is a wholesale power provider, generation and transmission electric cooperative in South Dakota and Minnesota. And we serve 25 members across our region, 24 which are member cooperatives, electrical cooperatives, and one which is a municipally owned government. Um, so I think when it comes to, co-op, the thing that surprises people and that people just tend to not understand sometimes about in our sector, what we do is that we are member owned. And so when we're talking to officials and we're talking to government officials and people in the communities, I think it's important to let them know that we are guided by our members, we are owned by our members, and we are very different than a for-profit organization that is working towards maybe making money for shareholders or answering shareholders. We're actually answering to the people that own us. So that really tends to surprise us. Sometimes we get lumped into some of these more investor-owned organizations, and sharing that what we're doing is just so different is, I think, the main thing that we really have to do. And then also starting in the life cycle of people that are involved in cooperatives and communities, not just starting with people, later in life when they're, starting to work in government relations or they move and they become a member of a cooperative. But getting into the schools, educating young people, getting out to events, and just really communicating what the cooperative difference is and our cooperative principles, showing how we're involved in community. It's just such a different setup than something that's for profit.
Yeah, and speaking to that difference, maybe Jamie, you want to jump in here and talk about where you find yourself in the credit union space as well.
Sure. And it was wonderful to hear Chelsea's take. Chelsea and I are not too far from each other. We are located in the Midwest, so we're really in what we call the heartland of the United States. And I sit in Iowa, and Iowa's kind of right in the middle. We are ag country. And so in the Iowa credit union system, we operate very much in an environment that is hyper rural. We have 66 credit unions in Iowa. We represent more than half of our state's population, so 1.6 million Iowans are members of a local credit union. And kind of interesting, and I think this goes back to advocacy, but of our credit union system, all but one are regulated by our state regulatory entity. So we actually have our own credit union regulator in Iowa. They are still insured by our national insurer, the NCUA. But the regulator we get to talk to. So if we have laws and issues that are affecting how credit unions create programs for their members, in Iowa, we actually get direct influence on that because it is so hyper local. So we kind of have a different and unique system. I think what's great about that is that as member owners, so Jamie Miller is a member of my local financial cooperative, my local credit union. If I want, a new loan, if I want a new service at my credit union, and maybe my credit union is struggling to be able to offer that because of regulatory burden, I have influence. I have direct access and influence because of our local model. So it's kind of a cool kind of Iowa thing. So I think kind of going to the core of your question around connecting with lawmakers and really what resonates with them. So in our political environment in Iowa, we are very, very tied to ag success. So, that is the majority of our industry in Iowa. And so they very much know agricultural cooperatives. Financial cooperatives is a little bit different for them. They know what a bank is. And so we spend a lot of time educating them about really the difference between a financial cooperative and a bank and shareholders, very much what Chelsea was talking about. But I think the other piece is storytelling. So bringing direct examples of how credit unions are different. Credit unions, we operate within our cooperative principles, just like all cooperatives do. And so the services that we offer and the loans that we offer reflect the needs of our membership, which is overwhelmingly what we would call folks of modest means in Iowa, individuals that are kind of right in that middle income area. So that, could be anything from a loan to get a new set of dentures because they can't afford it to a quinceanera loan for a local family. sharing those personal stories and the difference that what drives the products and services is not profit, but is people.
Yeah, that's such an excellent point on bridging that educational gap and being hyper local. And Amy, would love to hear your take on this question, coming at it from a
Sure.
similar but different perspective.
Well, and I love how different our co-ops are. So we are very different from a rural electric cooperative. We're very different from a credit union. I am gonna first tell you just the like what I'm doing here. Not like in, a existential kind of way, but like what am I doing with my life? How did I find myself in the cooperative movement? So I'm one of the co-executive directors of the Community Purchasing Alliance Co-op. We call ourselves CPA Co-op. I come to the cooperative movement after many years working in nonprofit. In my last position, I was running a facility for homeless women and children. And I knew that the program was working for the 14 families lucky enough to live on the property. But we would get hundreds of phone calls a month from people we couldn't help. And so I will paraphrase Desmond Tutu here when he said that the work I was doing, I was pulling drowning people out of the river, which we are called to do, we have to do. But eventually, like, let's go upstream and prevent them from falling in. And so I then switched gears. I became a community organizer, and I spent a lot of time teaching people how to build power and win big on local issues that were important to them. And that's when I ran into CPA Co-op. I was organizing people power, and the co-op was organizing money power. And essentially, this is my continued journey to swim upstream and continue building power. So we are a purchasing cooperative that is owned by houses of worship, schools, and nonprofits. We have a national network of co-ops with purchasing happening in about 10 states in the United States and 3 local co-ops in Ohio, Massachusetts, and the Washington, D.C. region, which includes Maryland and Virginia. We do really sexy purchasing, mostly facilities related procurement on behalf of our members. And we have found that community institutions coming together to purchase copiers, janitorial services, waste hauling, school meals, security guards, HVAC, natural gas, solar, electricity, and more has not only saved them money, but also time and burden. So then we leverage both the buying power of these institutions, but also the expertise of the members themselves. So we have hundreds and hundreds of years of facility expertise of people maintaining these buildings. We are also a social purpose cooperative in that we want these community institutions to spend their money more powerfully. So we're seeking to shift spend to locally owned, BIPOC owned, woman owned, cooperatively owned businesses. And I think we get y'all sound too good to be true. You're going to help me save money and you're going to shift my spend, to a more local and values aligned partner. And I think, yeah, the answer is like, no, we're not just a bunch of do-gooders. We are a business. It's just that as my co-panelists have already lifted up, we are not maximizing profit for a shareholder. We're maximizing the value and benefit for our member owners. The last thing I'll say, the question that Leah asked was which part of our message lands first? I think overwhelmingly, it's the saving money part. Like, let's be real, budgets are tight. Electricity bills are up 100% in our part of the country. And the message we have of times are tough, but you don't have to figure it out alone is a very compelling message. Oh, and we're going to save you some moolah.
Love all of the threads everyone pulled out. And I see Chelsea is still here with us and is up. There you are, jumping back up onto the screen. But, this gives us such a helpful starting point, but also really substantive through lines for our audience on how we can talk about, the work that we do where it's not for profit and we are a business. And looking at the way that co-ops get formed, which can be for a number of reasons, to provide affordable energy costs, to harness the purchasing power while meeting the needs of your consumers, and create accessible access to the financial products and services, whether it comes to markets or serving disadvantaged and underserved communities, creating competition or affordability, or just to fill a general need. We know that co-ops allow folks to take control of their economic lives. And I'm curious for each of you, and maybe going back to Chelsea here, how does this show up in your work, and how do you communicate it in a way that is credible and specific, like will save you moolah, and connected to the co-op business model? And everyone feel free to jump in on this one.
Great. I think that the beauty of cooperatives is that democratic process. When you say that empowers people to take, control of their economic situation, the part about it not only is that they get to be this member of this group that is working for them and working for communities and doing great things out in communities, but they also get to have a voice in the say of what happens at that organization through the democratic process, electing people to the board that speak for what they want in their life, that speaks to the same kind of values that they hold. So I think that that is kind of the coolest part of cooperatives in some ways, not only that it's member owned, but that the person literally does have the opportunity to have that voice. And I think, how do you communicate that in a way that's clear, a way that's, very targeted? I think part of that is just showing up, showing up at places, showing up in the halls of government, showing up, in our case, for members at their, we have events for our members. We have opportunities for them to come to meetings, but it's not just like a dry meeting or something like that. Our members, will have a kids, jumpy houses, and they'll have events where they'll serve a meal, and people might get actual if they show up, they might get a discount on their bill or something like that. And I think that those one-on-one connections with the people that we serve, it's not just the message that we're telling, but it's how we connect with them. That is just the main thing that we focus on, is just really those interpersonal relationships. And then also having a plan, how we're going to do that as well. Obviously, we have, campaigns that we do in our region that speak specifically to them. And I think connecting with them is really based on, hearing where they're at in their life right now. It's not necessarily just giving them information, but showing them that we understand where they're at and that we are doing things, it might not be perfect, rates are going up on everything, but we're doing things that we can to bring those costs down, or at least keep them stable and not for profit, and making sure that we, let them know what we're doing, whether that is, purchasing things in with other cooperatives, so we're buying in bulk, or if we're showing up together after a storm to help with damage repair. I think just being out in the community and very visible is the biggest thing that we can do to get our cooperative message across.
I can chime in if that's okay, Leah. I think, and this is, I'm not sure if this phrase resonates with folks outside of the US, but there is a common phrase that says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And in Iowa, we used to be first in the United States in what was called the caucuses. And this was a big deal for our state. We brought in politicians who were running for US president. Oh my gosh, for years. It was a big part of growing up in Iowa. So engagement in political activism and policy is very much core to our culture in Iowa as Iowans. And I think the great thing about that is that that resonates with, the nearly 5,000 employees that Iowa credit unions employ, and the nearly 1 almost 7 million now Iowa credit union members, because we are constantly encouraging them and asking them to take action. And when we think about how we want them to take action, we're not just lobbying on issues that affect the operations of the credit union, but we are looking at issues that affect the overall economic prosperity of our state and of Iowans broadly, the more than 3 million people that live here, because we know that their financial health impacts the financial health of the cooperative system in Iowa. So, just to give some examples of conversations that we've had with lawmakers and where this has had then tied into actual policy change, um, data. Data is so important. So we are constantly pulling data around the type of loans that credit unions offer, the members, the income of the members that are served in Iowa. We are overwhelmingly pulling data and ensuring that that data is accurate. Legislators want data. They're going to ask for it. Policymakers want to know that, you're speaking truth to the stories that you tell. And so an example of that was more than 10 years ago. There was a big report that was done on individuals that were asset limited and income constrained. And this is done across the US. And what came about from that report was that working families in Iowa could not afford childcare. So families were choosing not to work. One of their spouses was choosing not to work because they could not afford childcare. And they were foregoing salary increases because that would limit their childcare assistance that they would receive. In Iowa, why this matters to our state in particular is we are in a population kind of stagnation place. Unfortunately, more folks are leaving the state than are entering the state. And so we need workers. We need people to work. We need that economic mobility in our state because we have 3 jobs for every 1 Iowan. So we added this to our legislative agenda, and we started actively lobbying for childcare assistance to ensure that more Iowans had access to quality and affordable childcare. And what was wonderful about that is it was not a, liberal view. It was not a conservative view. It really was a united view. And it also wasn't an anti-bank view or only credit union view. This is truly an everybody benefit. And lawmakers brought that up. So then when we would go and say, hey, we're talking about this issue that affects credit union operations that we were lobbying for as well, they would say, you know what? That's great. And I'm going to listen to you because you don't just care about yourself. You care about the common good, the better good of our state.
That's awesome, Jamie. I love hearing that. And I think I wanted to share just a little bit about how our co-op was formed. Because like most co-ops, I would say that ours was literally founded out of necessity. So a group of church and synagogue administrators were sitting around a table lamenting the fact they were spending more on their electricity bill than they were on their clergy salaries. And that's how this group of like 12 houses of worship, churches and synagogues came together and purchased electricity together and saved $100,000 collectively. And so they weren't a co-op yet. They were just people at these houses of worship figuring it out. And then they looked around and the executive director of the synagogue said, you know what, I need a new copier machine. If you all put your copiers on my bid, maybe we'll get better pricing. And so unsurprisingly, they got better pricing, but they also got better contract terms because Ellen was so meticulous and she redlined that contract so that everyone who was part of that purchase benefited from her experience. And I mentioned that, we as a co-op have this, social purpose of shifting spend to values aligned vendors. We also have now this gaps assessment that we have this pool of members who need services, and then we are working with local co-op developers to say, you know what, there aren't really any good transportation options for these schools and these churches, or we don't have a good pest control company that we trust. We don't have a snow plowing option that's affordable and transparent with their pricing. So we see ourselves as we have sort of the demand, and we're working with local co-op incubators to help figure out, like, are there ways that we can develop co-ops to then serve our member owners? And And I wanted to give you two examples to like how this shows up concretely, because I think sometimes we're talking, at a very high level, and I want to give you some really concrete examples. So one example that comes to mind was a church in Silver Spring, Maryland, that went through our co-op to purchase their janitorial services, their waste hauling, and their electricity. And with the money that they saved, they were able to hire a part-time bilingual pastor. So it was something that they had been, that was definitely a need for them. They had wanted to do for a really long time, but it was a budgetary constraint. And so that's a very practical, we were able to save money through the co-op, and now we are able to fulfill our mission, which is exactly why we exist. And then the second one is a little bit of a wonky policy issue that started very simply as our school member owners coming to us saying, the school food, the school meals that we are feeding children is gross. It's frozen, it's coming from New Jersey, it's being shipped down multiple states. The kids hate it. The chicken nuggets are somehow soggy and dry. Like we can't. And so our co-op decided that we were going to try to step into a federally funded major compliance and oversight for procurement for the National School Lunch Program. And one of the hurdles we had to get past was this policy that many states have in place, including the District of Columbia, where you have to select the lowest bidder because it's public tax dollars and you want to make sure that these institutions are spending it wisely. However, hello, the lowest cost food is not the yummiest food in most cases. And so our co-op had to work for years to change this policy so that our schools could select vendors based on other factors. So one of the factors that we have been promoting most is food made locally. So food made locally is going to taste better than food not made locally. So that's something that we've been able to do. And now I want to say that there are like 9 million meals that are now flowing through the co-op, and we are providing meals for about 25% of all of the students in Washington, D.C. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, because I heard it a little bit with Jamie and Chelsea as well, CPA Co-op, we have these external values, and we also want to make sure, though, that our internal values match those external values. So how we do the work is as important as the work itself. And as an employer, as an equitable employer, we want, it's important to us, the cooperative values extend to our own employees. And that we practice workplace democracy at CPA Co-op, and I do believe it's helped us grow and retain our employees.
I absolutely love all of the examples that you all gave, really showing just how, as cooperatives, it's not just based on the interest of our sector, specific industry, but really that we are built to serve community and be responsive to local needs, whether that's the importance of engaging with your local lawmakers or seeing it from the larger picture and zooming out to national level conversations that need to have greater education and awareness, but not losing sight, as Chelsea mentioned, of showing up every day consistently. And the example that Amy gave of communicating internally and externally on the cooperative values as well. And maybe to dive a little bit deeper into that, are there some examples, Chelsea, of how you all had to move quickly because you saw your community needs change? And how do you all tell that story? How did you all tell that story to your members, but also get buy-in from the broader public as well?
Right. I'm probably not going to share something right now that's in the past. I'm going to share something that we're going through right now. There's a lot of conversation in the world about the price of electricity and how it's going up and demand. There's a lot of talk about, data centers and things that are straining the electric grid, things like that. And so, right now we're going through one of those transitions. And one of the things that's happened due to some of that is a lot of our members who sell, electricity to their members have implemented what's called a demand rate and changed their rate structure for how they bill. And what that means is that people are paying for the electricity at the cost that the co-op pays for it at the time of use when they use it. So it's a very different switch in how people have been used to be billing. And not all of our cooperative members are doing it. Right now, there's just a few that are starting to do that. But a lot of other of our members are thinking about maybe doing it in the future, or maybe they just want to educate their members about what demand is and how the time when you use electricity impacts what your bill looks like, or maybe affects the co-op as a whole, even if it doesn't necessarily affect your bill specifically. And honestly, it's a very technical, hard to understand, confusing thing. And most people just really don't care about it that much. They just want to pay their bill. They want it to, take care of things and not have to think about it. But with these different rates, it does empower the people that have that kind of rate to look at the time of use that they're using things and actually possibly save money on their bill based on when they're using your electricity. But this is a really, really hard thing to communicate and get people on board with. So one of the things that we've got out of that is, because we're a group of cooperatives that work together, we're kind of going through this change together and we're learning as we go. And there's this thing that we use in our cooperative world called admire and acquire. And one of the things that we've really been doing is, if one of our cooperatives is doing something really well, or if we need help with something, what we're doing is we're reaching out to our other member cooperatives and saying, hey, what did you do? Or, hey, you did this thing really well. Maybe you created a video that really helps educate your members on what this is. Could we use it or repurpose it for our own use, because it works really, really well? And that's one thing that we've always done really well. But in the last year, I've really seen our member cooperatives and other cooperatives across the nation that sell electricity really come together and share information on that, whether it's building rates, talking about rate structures for bringing loads online, maybe data centers or large other types of large loads. And one of the things that our co-op did specifically lately is we had a meeting with some of our member services and communicators, and we brought in cooperatives across our network that had implemented a demand rate, just to have a roundtable discussion and a panel so they could share what their experiences were and talk to other co-ops and ask questions and just like hash it out. Hey, this is what we're doing. What are you doing? What could we be doing better? And that collaboration has really been a strength. And I think just when you go through change together as a group, it kind of brings you together closer, but it also helps others help others. And for me, I think, what really changed after that outreach is for people to have a little bit more understanding, even in our network, of how to go through this big change that we're going through together right now, at a national level, but how to handle it internally and how to help each other out, and what we can do to be sharing resources.
I can chime in.
It really, it developed. Yeah.
Jamie, I
Sorry,
saw some
Chelsea.
vigorous head nodding there, so please jump in.
Well, and I apologize, Chelsea. I think the last bit there cut out, but it resonated so much. The cooperation among your cooperatives. I just love that. That is very much core to the work that we do at the Iowa Credit Union League. In a given year, we're putting on anywhere between 50 and 100 events for credit unions to come together and collaborate. Whether it is, operation questions, whether it is challenges, whether it is fraud. I mean, fraud is such a big issue, I think, in all of our lives. And it is expensive for credit unions to combat fraud. And it's one thing if you're a, $11 billion financial cooperative, it's much different if you're a $50 million financial cooperative. But the great thing is we create events and spaces to bring them in, and they're sharing. We call it co-opetition. Yes, they are likely competing with their products and services in our state. However, they come together and they share resources and best practices. They share policy templates. I have some colleagues that work in the for-profit banking world. They would never do that. They would never collaborate and cooperate. And it's really that, what is our purpose? In the credit union world, we call it people helping people. Credit unions operate, and I think all cooperatives do, but we are regular folks. We are regular people who are operating with a people first mentality, not a profit first mentality. One example, and I think this is probably core to all cooperatives and really our history, but one example that is top of mind when I think about moving quickly to respond is the COVID-19 pandemic. So when that happened, our state, our nation, like many of yours, completely shut down. Folks could not leave their home. And in Iowa, I shared, we're considered a low wage state, and many of our employees either work in agriculture or food processing, and those jobs were on complete pause, which meant, many of the people in Iowa could not pay their rent. They could not pay their bills. And so credit unions, and we have done this throughout our 100-year history in Iowa, and I'm sure beyond Iowa as well, came together and established an emergency relief fund of about $1 million to provide individuals who could not go to work and had immediate needs for whether it was bills or food. And we gave out nearly 2,000 individual small dollar grants, very, very small dollar grants. So our trade association and our nonprofit arm was able to do that. And credit unions came together. It wasn't, this $11 billion credit union wanted all the dollars to come to them. And, there was no argument. It was really for the common good and for the betterment of the community as a whole. We also immediately put together virtual roundtables where credit union CEOs could connect with each other. And we thought, okay, we're going to do it twice a week just to see what happens. They found so much value in connecting with each other and sharing, okay, how do I make sure I have protective gear for my staff? How do we meet the needs of Iowans that need, they need to transact, they need access to their accounts. And I think honestly, going back to Chelsea, your point around challenge, bringing the industry together, we call it a movement in Iowa, the Iowa Credit Union Movement. And COVID-19 was a horrible thing, and yet it absolutely brought our industry and our movement in Iowa together. And members felt that. Members remembered that. And actually, if you look at the number of credit union members before COVID-19 versus now, it's gone up dramatically. And so there are so many great stories to tell. And I think, kind of to put a bow on my comments, Lee, I think just continue to make sure you're capturing those stories, the stories of individuals that have saved money, that have, been able to achieve their goals thanks to the cooperative, I think is just so, so important.
Absolutely love that. And stories backed with those data points, as you mentioned. But Amy, what are you all seeing, or what have you all seen?
Sure. So actually, Jamie, the story I was going to tell was also from COVID. So we actually thought that our co-op might go under during COVID because our business is facility purchasing and facilities were closed. And so I think we did some scenario planning, like reduction of staff hours and this sort of thing. And then I think to our surprise, perhaps, we realized that members needed us more than ever, and that they were all collectively going through something, and that we could be both the convener and the cooperator. I love the word co-opetition, by the way. I'm going to steal that, Jamie. So our member owners asked us to step into purchasing PPE. And our co-op, we do not purchase goods. There are a lot of other really great group purchasing organizations that do that sort of bulk purchasing of actual things. But our member owners were telling us, look, we can't find real masks. We're getting counterfeit masks. We can't find hand sanitizer. We can't find, right? So like and so we do what we as a co-op do is we leverage the knowledge inside of our network. We were able to, through the cooperative ecosystem, we were able to identify suppliers here in the United States. So like a cooperative in North Carolina was producing the masks for our member owners. A Black-owned business, Black-owned Latinx business in California was providing some of the other supplies. And I think we were all shocked when Montgomery County, Maryland, so the government of Montgomery County, one of the wealthiest, largest counties in the entire country, came to us to purchase their PPE for all of their daycare centers. And I think, one of the things that struck me about that is sometimes we sell ourselves short, that we're just this like fledgling or we're just this scrappy co-op, and like, no, actually what we have put together, what we have done in cooperation and collaboration with all of these institutions is extremely valuable. And I think then, the last thing I'll say is like what changed for us since COVID is that not only did we not close our doors, but we grew our staff from 6 to hiring our 21st employee this year. And that people felt the cooperative difference during that tenuous time. And it seems like we're in a similar tenuous time of uncertainty. And that while we can't solve all of the geopolitical nightmares that are happening all over the world and environmental crises, we are still certain that we will do better together than going it alone.
You absolutely hit the nail on the head, and I know we're going to move to audience questions in just a few moments here. So while folks are dropping their questions into the chat, just to really highlight some of the shared points that everyone made and that we know the importance of talking to each other, collaborating with each other through good co-opetition, which I think I will also steal. But also, having that framework of both admiring the best practices, which you'll only find out by talking to each other and acquiring them, as Chelsea put it, and the importance of advocacy, just thinking back to the pandemic in the United States and the way that NCBA's members across sectors showed up to get access to financing and loans from the government that helped prevent some of those co-ops from going under. And we know 96% of co-ops in the US, based on data we've looked at, are still in business today that got access to federal financing, which was only possible because everyone used their collective voices to advocate for that program through the Paycheck Protection Program. And credit unions showed up to administer those loans and provide them to co-ops. And also having those data points, because we have proof of concept in all of this, that we were positioned to solve these challenges, came to policymakers with our ask and backed them up by data points. So want to make sure that the audience has time to ask any questions here, and I will defer to Erin and our chat moderators here to pick up on what they might be dropping in.
Seen a lot of good comments come up throughout, lots of people dropping in their own links, and we love that folks are using it. There's an emphasis from Ken Kavanaugh. I love Jamie's phrase, hyper-local, as it speaks to me regarding the trend for some credit unions opting to be federal credit unions able to have members across Canada, thereby federally regulated. It's true, that is something we're just starting to see in Canada over the last little while. I haven't seen any specific questions come in for you folks yet. I guess I have a question just based on what you've shared, and that is, How do you sort of navigate the question of wanting to serve member needs and trying to figure out what your lane is at any given time, whether that's in comparison to what other members or other folks in even the cooperative and credit union ecosystem are doing, or just what is going to thin out your resources and capabilities versus your members have needs that aren't being met? How do you meet them?
For that question, I'll jump in first because we get this a lot of people asking us to do things that are not in our lane. I think because of the trust that we have built with our member owners, they come to the co-op first, which we love. We are so excited that we are their first call when they want something. But we just cannot, we don't have the capacity to address every single issue that comes up for our member owners. And so I think, you know, we practice, we have a community organizing discipline where, you know, if we start hearing the same pain point coming up again and again, then we hold a listening session with all of our members. Then we do a survey of needs, right? And then we do a market analysis, a landscape analysis to see if there are good quality vendors that could possibly, you know, so they know that if there's a process and that the co-op does not move the fastest. And so for those urgent needs that are not in our lane, we have really good partners. So we have a lot of visibility into all things in our regions. And so we're able to quickly identify. We are not, I would say, we play in the sandbox really well with others. We don't view people as competitors. We have a mission of providing support and services for our member owners. So that's what I will say is that we have a process for determining if it is our lane, and we also have many partners if we are not able, if that is not our lane.
I think I'll just add partnerships, I think is the crux of how we're able to respond. You know, there's a controversial phrase, but it's one that I'll share with all of you. Post-COVID, credit unions were dubbed financial first responders. Not at all to diminish, you know, the law enforcement, firefighters, those who put their lives genuinely at risk to serve the greater good, but because members were coming in with mental health crisis. Members were coming in with more than just financial crisis into the credit union, food insecurity, housing insecurity. And post-COVID, that has just continued to grow. And in our current environment where the cost of gasoline and goods and services is just going up. I know Chelsea's feeling it from an energy perspective as well. Financial first responders really reacts to how can credit unions serve the needs of their members, but also know that, you know, we can't be everything to everyone. You know, we aren't professional social workers. And so what many credit unions in Iowa have done is a couple things. First of all, they've started hiring from social work. They've hired folks from the social work industries to really help be navigators. If someone comes into the credit union and they are struggling with an issue, whether it's mental health or food insecurity or housing insecurity, how can we be a navigator to connect them to their expert or their resource that they need outside of the credit union? And so many credit unions have built relationships with local nonprofit agencies, even local governmental agencies to make sure that they can get the services that they need. But I think it goes back to Amy's point. There's just such strong trust with members that their credit union is there for them. I mean, that to us is our purpose. Serving the needs of members is absolutely our purpose, but we also know that we can't be everything to everyone. So I think partnerships is really how we're able to do that.
I'm going to touch on a lot of what you guys already said, and I agree that those partnerships are the strong parts. Whether we have them or we develop something within our cooperative or an arm cooperative that can actually serve that need. And sometimes that might be what it takes. But I'm going to touch on something else as well. You know, a lot of times just having staff that are committed to serving in community organizations outside of what you do for work in the cooperative can actually also make those connections as well. So, you know, making sure that you have staff giving them empowerment to be involved in local organizations, giving them time off to go volunteer if they need to, giving them time off to serve on a local board, a local organization, things like that. It's a small thing, but it's also something that can have a really big impact outside of what you just do within your cooperative itself.
Maybe just to jump in here with moderator privilege on the question that you asked, and it reflects the moment that we're in and the conversations folks are having in terms of looking for economic solutions, ways to be connected to each other and community. And in the advocacy space in Washington, D.C., folks often say this is the time of coalition building and finding unsuspecting allies to help get priorities across the finish line, because when you have more voices together, everyone working together recognizes that you're coming at it from different angles, but you're all working towards the shared goal, and know that despite our industries, despite what sectors we might come from, you can work together to push forward key specific policies that benefit cooperatives, like we saw with the preserving the credit union tax status last year, and folks working together within NCBA's membership. And I see there's a note that folks can use the raise hand function if you'd like to ask a question directly or have any comments. Maybe as folks are finding their raise hand buttons. Okay, we see one question. Is there any messaging that you all are doing leading up to the United States 250th anniversary?
Virginia, I can jump in. So we think that actually the democracy itself is a muscle that has to be continually flexed and built, and that is part of the reason we operate democratically at our co-op, and we're also modeling that democracy for our member owners. So I think we haven't done any direct messaging around the 250th anniversary because it's slightly politicized and problematic in the streams that we swim in. But I do think the focus on this intention of democracy, if you can keep it.
Yeah, not specifically to the anniversary, but because of it, and because it's a voting year, an election year, we worked with our statewide magazine that puts together magazines for all of our member cooperatives across the region to do a story on voting. And we didn't really, the goal of it was to kind of a get out and vote, but it wasn't the standard format that you would normally see and just telling people, you know, here's where you go vote, that kind of thing. We actually had our statewide organization, they interviewed people that are involved in cooperatives that have either served in the military, veterans, maybe somebody that serves on a school board that is like works at a cooperative, something like that. We interviewed people that were getting out and doing things in their community, and then asked for their perspective, and they give quotes and their stories and why they go vote every year and the importance of it to them. And it really connected on this emotional level with people, and that was the goal. And I think sometimes it's not really specific, you know, we're not doing something specific to the anniversary, but also just showing people, you know, why the democratic process is so amazing, how that connects to cooperatives, because we are democratic organizations as well, but also just sharing stories of people and why it matters to them.
And I'll just comment, we do not have any specific plans related to the 250th anniversary of the United States. However, last year was the 100th anniversary of the Iowa Credit Union Code. So the ability, we actually passed our code in Iowa prior to the federal Iowa or Federal Credit Union Act. And so as we were reflecting on 100 years of Iowa credit unions, we looked back and it continued to iterate. Our model continued to evolve and iterate based on the needs of Iowans. You know, very small employer groups, a lot of them were agricultural related or church based. Those still exist today. They have new names, they have new products and services, but the consistency throughout all of it, and I think this resonates, and we're going to be bringing this message to our big convention in September, is, you know, we are a more perfect union. That is what we strive to be as Iowans, as I think United States citizens. And so a reminder that our credit union model, from a US perspective, has continued to evolve. We have gone through hardship and challenge, as many of, I think, of the folks on this Zoom call have as well in their, homes and their environments. How do we continue to be resilient? How do we continue to remain committed to our purpose? And so we're using that theme, but we're also using the Americana theme at our big convention this September because we'll be at a baseball park. But we're going to continue that theme of resilience and continuing commitment to our core purpose and not losing sight of that purpose.
The resilience of co-ops is a very, very strong story, and we know that it's there, but also that ongoing commitment, not just to the purpose of the co-op, but to democracy, as Amy pointed out, to making sure that members are equipped with the tools to communicate with elected officials and your communities, as Chelsea mentioned. And maybe just to give 1 second for our panelists to provide some final closing thoughts, if folks have any additional before we sign off here, hand it back to Erin.
Yes, everyone, I am going to drop our LinkedIn in the chat. Yes, we would love for you to follow us, but it's actually just in case you're curious of how we communicate our cooperative message to our member owners and our community. We recently hired our first communications consultant because we were not doing a good job telling our story. We were not doing a good job of being present on social media. A newer employee to the co-op told us that if she were dating CPA, we would be a huge red flag because we were not active on socials. And so anyway, I put that out there. If you want to look at our LinkedIn, would love to hear from you all how you think we're doing in communicating our message.
So thank you, Amy, and going once, going twice from our other panelists.
I think I would just like to say I talked a lot about, communicating costs, especially in our industry, and that's what really stands out to people. We're not for profit. I think it's really important to make sure that we continue to not just communicate costs, but also value. Because as a cooperative, the 7 cooperative principles are so amazing. We offer so much value in just showing up to community events, showing up financially if we need to, supporting education, just supporting members, but not just supporting members, but supporting people in general. It's not just our membership, it's a larger region and a larger area, and just people in general. I think making sure we keep that focus on the people and always continue to make it about them and the members we serve is just the most important thing that we can do.
And I think my parting comment is, I think any of us get stuck in what we call the transaction of the day in credit union world. And so my, ask to all of you is make sure you keep your eye on the big picture, not just the transaction of the day, but going back to concern for community. We all operate in an ecosystem outside of our day-to-day roles, jobs, tasks. And it is very difficult when any of us is trying to get our task list done for the day. But in the credit union world, it is very overwhelming when we have members coming in that have emotional challenges, that have financial challenges, and not losing sight of our core purpose and that concern for the community is just so, so important. So I always, ensure and remind folks that in our work as cooperatives, taking care of our members is absolutely number one. And let's keep our eye on how our work resonates with our broader community as well. That will bring more members in, right?
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Aaliyah, Chelsea, and Amy. This has been such a good panel to kick things off on. Thank you for your energy, your clear care for members, your willingness to face complexity, and the multiple challenges that none of us anticipated over the last 5 years, especially in your context, to be able to be that trusted ally to members in meeting their core needs and helping them navigate what has become in some ways a very scary and heavy multi things that folks are facing on a day-to-day basis. So we appreciate that, and thank you also for emphasizing the value of data, stories, and collaboration to be able to leverage the success of the co-ops and credit unions to meet member needs.